When the husband got home that night, as his wife served dinner, he held her hand and said, "I've got something to tell you." The wife sat down and ate quietly. And he observed the hurt in her eyes. Suddenly he didn't know how to open his mouth. But he had to let her know what he was thinking. The man want a divorce. He raised the topic calmly. The wife didn't seem to be annoyed by the husband's words, instead the wife asked him softly, "Why?" He avoided her question. This made the wife angry. She threw away the chopsticks and shouted at him, "You are not a man." That night, they didn't talk to each other. The wife was weeping. He knew she wanted to find out what had happened to their marriage. But the husband could hardly give her wife a satisfactory answer, because she had lost his heart to another woman. The husband didn't love her wife anymore. He just pitied her. With a deep sense of guilt, the husband drafted a divorce agreement, which stated that she could own their house, car, and 30% stake of his company. The wife glanced at it, and then tore it into pieces. The woman who had spent 10 years of her life with him had become a stranger in his eyes, and he felt sorry for her wasted time, resources and energy, but he could not take back what he had said, for he loved the other woman so dearly now. Finally the wife cried loudly in front of him, which was what he had expected to see. To him, her cry was actually a kind of release. The idea of divorce which had obsessed the man for several weeks seemed to be firmer and clearer now. The next day, the husband came back home very late, and found the wife writing something at the table. He didn't have dinner, but went straight to bed, and fell asleep very fast, because he was tired after having intimate encounter with his mistress. When he woke up, the wife was still there, at the table writing. He just did not care, so he turned over and was asleep again. In the morning, the wife presented her divorce conditions, and said she didn't want anything from him, but needed a month's notice before the divorce. She requested that in that 1 month, they both struggle to live as normal life as possible. Her reasons were simple. Their son had his exams in a month's time, and she didn't want to disrupt him with their broken marriage. This was agreeable to the husband. But the wife had something more. She asked the husband to recall how he had carried her out in the bridal room on their wedding day. She requested that every day for the month's duration, he will carry her out of their bedroom, into the front door every morning. The man thought his wife was going crazy. But to make their last days together bearable, he accepted her odd request. He told his mistress about the wife's divorce conditions. The mistress laughed loudly, and thought it was absurd. And said, "No matter what tricks your wife applies, she has to face the divorce," she said scornfully. The husband and wife hadn't had any body contact since their divorce intention was explicitly expressed. So when the husband started to carry the wife out in the bedroom, into the front door, as the wife's condition, before giving him the freedom he wants. Their son clapped behind them, and happily saying Daddy is holding Mommy in his arms. The words of the son brought a sense of pain to him. From the bedroom to the sitting room, then to the door, the husband walked over 10 meters with the wife in his arms. She closed her eyes, and said softly, "Don't tell our son about the divorce." He nodded. But feeling somewhat upset, he put her down outside the door. And she went to wait for the bus to work. And he himself drove alone to the office. On the second day, both of them acted much more easily. The wife leaned on his chest. The husband could smell the fragrance of her blouse. The husband realized that he hadn't looked at this woman carefully for a long time. He also realized she was not young anymore. There were fine wrinkles on her face, and her hair was graying. Their marriage had taken its toll on her. For a minute he wondered what he had done to her. On the fourth day, when he lifted her up, he felt a sense of intimacy returning. This was the woman who had given 10 years of her life to him. On the fifth and sixth day, he noticed that their sense of intimacy was growing again. He didn't tell his mistress about this. Every day, it became easier for him to carry his wife, as the months slipped by. He thinks, perhaps, the everyday workout made him stronger. One morning, the wife was choosing what to wear. She tried on quite a few dresses, but could not find a suitable one. Then she sighed, all of her dresses have grown bigger. The husband suddenly realized that she had grown so thin, that was the reason why he could carry her more easily. Suddenly it hit the husband, that his wife had buried so much pain and bitterness in her heart. Subconsciously, he reached out and touched his wife's head. Then their son came in at the moment, and said, "Dad, it's time to carry Mom out." To the boy, seeing his father carrying his mother out, had become an essential part of his life. The wife gestured to their son to come closer, and she hugged him tightly. The husband turned his face away, because he was afraid he might change his mind at this last minute. He then carried her out in the bedroom, into the front door, and she wrapped her hands over the husband's neck, just like their wedding day. But her much lighter weight made the husband sad. On the last day, when the husband held his wife in his arms, he could hardly move a steps. Their son had gone to school. He held her tightly and said, "I hadn't noticed that our life lacked intimacy." And he drove to office, jumped out of the car swiftly, without locking the door. Because he was afraid that any delay would make him change his mind, he walked upstairs, knocked on the door. The mistress opened it with wide smile, but not expecting of what he was going to say. The man directly told her that he was very sorry, because he changed his mind, and don't want to pursue the divorce with the wife. He realized, he loved his wife so much, and it kills him seeing her hurt. The mistress looked at him, laughed, and touched his forehead. She then asked, "Do you have a fever?" The man moved her hand off his head. And again, telling her how sorry he was. For he won't divorce his wife. My marriage life was boring, probably because she and I didn't value the details of our lives, not because we didn't love each other anymore. Now, I realize that since I carried her into my home on our wedding day, I am supposed to hold her until death do us apart. The mistress seemed to suddenly wake up. She screamed so loud and gave him a hard slap. Before closing the door. She looked at him and slammed the door. She then burst into tears. For a moment the man did not move. And felt himself, because his world seemed to shake, spit out what was inside his mouth. But he already knew what it was, and walked away slowly, covering his mouth. Before the mistress slammed the door, she gave him a blow and an uppercut. With excessive force, he grinded his teeth and had two removed. On the way home, he went to the flower shop. And ordered a bouquet of flowers for his wife. The salesgirl asked him what to write on the card. He smiled and wrote, "I'll carry you out every morning until death do us apart." That evening the husband is very excited to go home and see his wife. Flowers in his hands, a smile on his face. When he arrive, he run upstairs and go to their room. There he saw his wife lying in bed. He slowly come closer to surprise her. But it's the other way around. To his shock with horror, he found his wife in the bed dead. All along his wife had been fighting cancer for months and he was so busy with the mistress to even notice. The wife knew that she would die soon, and she wanted to save the husband from the whatever negative reaction from their son, in case they push through with the divorce. At least, in the eyes of their son, he's a loving husband. The small details of your lives are what really matter in a relationship. It is not the mansion, the car, property, the money in the bank. These create an environment conducive for happiness but cannot give happiness in themselves. So find time to be your spouse's friend and do those little things for each other that build intimacy. If you are not in a relationship now, remember this for the second, or third, maybe fourth, time around. It's never too late. If you don't share this, nothing will happen to you, but if you do, you just might save a marriage. Many of life's failures are people who did not realize how close they were to success when they gave up.